Good morning. Good morning. Today I'm joined by Marcus Pavlakis from PNP Group. We met PNP and Marcus through some work we're doing up in the Caboolture area north of Brisbane. And, we invited PNP on today because they've got a really interesting philosophy about their builds and accessibility and how they're doing business. But I won't, again, Marcus, just what we said before, I won't steal your thunder, mate. You can sort of share for yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and what PNP is up to?
All right, well, I suppose thanks, Dave, and all the listeners out there. They're going to probably get onto this a bit later and listen. Sorry for my appearance. My head's normally for radio, but I'll say that up front. But anyway, P&P, look, we've started about 25 years ago in building construction sector. So prominently, me and my wife formed the business. We are professional auditors in building construction. She's a qualified as an engineer, educated and trained out of Germany. And myself, obviously trade licensed, in the building game. And that's really where we started back all those years ago in building construction. Using our skills in national standards globally to work on big major projects and travel the world, auditing projects from, in Dubai into Europe, working on, various projects in Europe, into New Zealand, working on the earthquake and the rebuilding of Christchurch with various organisations, making sure everything, that they're doing was right in, rebuilding all the, unfortunately, through the devastation there, the homes. So coming into the context of all that GRCs and understanding all compliance and especially building, we've seen over a long time I suppose, issues within the disability and aged care sector, and we have been involved in it, as I said, from building construction, working on big projects, development projects. One in particular was a large PPP. I was involved in a $1 billion redevelopment of 1,000 social housing projects into about 3,500. So when you think about all that, you've got accessibility, through all the design standards of the NCC and BCA. But what we did see is within the disability sector and aged care sector is a real lack of engagement, a real lack of understanding of not just, I suppose, the intent of a design or intent of, looking at understanding the performance of products and materials, because they're all designed differently. And people just assume a product's a product. Well, it's really not. There's all different types of variations, even to a tile. So bringing that sort of understanding of a compliance certification, laboratory testing of materials, walking through various companies over the many years through product certification, certainly importing those products from Europe to Australia and bringing them through code mark and different things. We really just decided, many years ago, post-COVID, that we would now utilize our skills, knowledge, our reach, resources, our experience and network, not locally, internationally, and come in and, I suppose, disrupt, game change a few things, go complete left of field. So as I say, should know that entrepreneurship, you're either onto something great or you're bat crazy. I'm probably the latter. So it's something, but it's something we're true to and something we're focused on, to really be saying to the market, you got to change, from a local point of view, to a national, to an international perspective. And the EU's been great. They've had some really good enforceable legislation and acts come into play this year. They're across the 26 member states for the universal design standards. But it's something that we've really got to change it, because with cost of build, cost of materials, cost of labour, the fact that with an aging population faster, through, not just various workplace injuries or, through, various situations, maybe a stroke, through stress and anxiety and things that happen within the day-to-day living of people today. pressure's on.
Anyone who's running a business, mate, can certainly put their hand up for that one, I'm sure.
100%. Suicides are through the roof. With insolvencies are through the roof. The world's in a really bad state. And that just going to equivalate to the fact that we're just gonna, get to a point where accessibility is going to be a real issue. And if anyone, it's hard enough for us, even as middle-aged people, for our kids to even think about getting into homes. It's hard to get home loans. It's hard to get into a home. Think about, really in 10 or 15 years' time, how problematic and hard is it going to be to get into an aged care facility with an over 65s? You won't afford it. There'll be no chance of getting in. And those locations or areas they'll reside won't be in areas that you think you want to reside in. So if you're not taking a holistic approach to design and development of a property today, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in the foreseeable future. That's just
and that's,
my
mate,
opinion.
speaking with you guys in the past few months, that's for me the distinction between where you're at and where a lot of other, investors and developers and buyers are at, right? So you're looking at a building, not necessarily as an SDA property, but we're SDA providers. We're interacting with you. You've got some SDA property that's there, but the philosophy that you've described, it's not just about SDA. It's about accessibility and being able to age in place in a building that will be suitable today, tomorrow, and in 30 years' time.
That's correct. And if you think about, those universal approaches, which some people out here are fantastic on, obviously Bruce is one and a lot of others out there, to name it, and we could rattle them all off. It'd take us probably hours to do it, locally and internationally. But if you take about those universal design approaches, it's about ensuring that all ages, size, physical, sensory, mental health, intellectual ability or disability, all those types of things are taking in, and they're all catered for within that approach of design. And then you start coming into, that approach that really a property shouldn't need modification. It shouldn't need, adaptation. It shouldn't need any more accessible devices in terms of the hardware. It shouldn't need any type of specialist solutions. There should be engagement from the get-go. Now, that's hard to engage from the start because there's very few companies like ours that actually are the total 360 solution. We are, from an investment point of view, we have, very close investment arms ourselves. We've got the PNP Property and Investment now up. So we raise and seek to raise our own capital. We do all the interior design, all the architectural design, engineering in-house. We do the building. We're a building company across multiple states, and then hang around, as you know, and completely control the building from a technology and facilities and performance point of view. So we don't run away. So from start to finish, we're involved. So we can take all this, international approach, like, some of the best practice in Europe, or take some of the high level requirements for around commercial approach, like stadiums, hotels, and these types of things, and try to bring it into a performance of a property without the compromise of quality and certainly without the compromise of cost. And that's a big thing. There's a big difference in cost from a general light to putting in a 16,000 spectrum, light into a property. So you can, use different types of lights for mooding, different types of lights for sensory and anxiety, for participants. And again, if holistically, as you rightly said, we're going into an accessible space. We're going into that luxury, high-end, accessible that is able to get not just certification in multiple standards and classes of property, which we have designs and they've been university assessed, to be able to go into those different classes under the BCAs, but it also means that we can utilize the property for multiple purposes, through providers like yourself. So it could be used for holiday let. It could be used for a general, person to occupy that may be getting older. It, might be substantially wealthy, doesn't want to sell the asset at home, but will move into that property knowing that they can age, get the care in that property in a high net worth area, luxury home or apartment, and they don't need to move to a nursing home. And
I think that's also important to highlight, right? Because I've been through. I mean, we're looking after your project in Caboolture.
Yep.
And just for privacy, mate, I won't name the street because it's up on the websites and housing hubs, so we won't drop the address. But it's a luxury development, and for those listening, like, you know, you've probably been in and out of 20 or 30 or 100 SDA properties in the past few years if you're in this space. And I describe it to my team like the Palazzo Versace of SDA homes. It's panelled walls, it's artwork, it's parquet flooring. You've never seen a level of luxe in an SDA home like this one.
Yeah, and look, and that's paramount for, you know, people always say to me, yeah, okay, for example, you talk about the herringbone parquetry vinyl floor. You know, not cheap. Anyone would know that if they're in the architectural space and they're in the design. And people say, why do that? I mean, with the border trimmings and things like that. But I mean, it has a subtle approach too, because it's transitional space between one environment to another. So now we've got a, you know, high contrasting, border there that also provides for vision impairment, which a lot of people don't think about. It's got the architectural feel, it's got the design, it's got the look, but, you know, it has other hidden benefits to it. But then, you know, one thing that everyone misses in this space, and this is probably the biggest issue, and say this out to all the providers, and this is critical, not just providers in terms of SCA, but providers in general. If people are not designing for your staff and for your supports, then you shouldn't be working with them, full stop. The biggest problem we've got in this sector is staff, is personnel, and they're dropping out at droves. They're not staying in the industry. The turnover of staff is dramatic. The mental health on staff and family is through the roof. So why do we want to go and provide services or have a participant go into a property that's sterile, that actually in some cases this minimum design standard the SDA's come out with and is and being able to certify through, for my personal opinion, is disgraceful. Some of these properties look worse than an aged care facility or a hospital. I'd rather probably move and go to one of those facilities and stay in some of these properties. But yet we want to put the staff there, but then the staff can't work in that environment. If they work in an office, that'd be illegal in some spaces and areas, because the lighting could be an issue. The just the ambience of a place. It's not an enjoyable place to go to work. So we make places enjoyable for our team and our people in offices, and we want to have all these great things, but we don't want to do it for the workforce that really earn us the dollars. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create that, I suppose, escape, that when you go beyond those gates, you're transcended into a different world. You're transcended into a world of equal. You're transcended into a world of, luxury, yes, but it's a property where you want to turn up to work. You want to go and actually visit your friend. You want to visit your family. You want to spend time there. You want your workers will enjoy going there, because not only is it beautiful and an environment to be in, but it's also something that, in terms of performance and for them to be able to do their job, they've got everything they could ever want within the facility. But also they've got a team behind them that designed and built it. And if there needs to be anything, say, done, we can do it swiftly, without, an impact or cost. And that's the key thing, when, again, you come back to the universal design. It shouldn't be built to a really substandard poor level and then go back and hit back up the scheme for additional costs for modification. I mean, I'd like to see the government take it out and say, if you don't build it right from the start, don't come back and stick your hand out for
Well,
any
there
alterations.
is there's a design guidelines review. So it was this week actually. It came out. So today's the 26th of
Yep.
September. Yeah. So it's Friday, 26th of September on the day of recording. And this week the email came out from the agency. They've asked KPMG to conduct the design review for the SDA design standards. So
Yeah, well, that's
that'll
good.
start to happen now, right?
Bunch of accountants doing the
Yes.
review. So they'll
Like,
come
look,
down well.
we know the team at KPMG. We've been engaging with them, and we've actually had a lady called Nicola Lemon here on the podcast, and she leads the team. And Nicola's been around a long time. She's the former CEO of Hume Housing.
Yep.
And I think they're a good pick. Certainly, it needs to get out of the agency, right, to go and scope and do the review. So I know that they're going to be engaging widely, and I think it's voices like yours and voices who are in the building. You've touched on a few really cool things I'd like to ask you about. You know, it's no secret in construction in general, not just in the accessibility disability builds, that the cost of construction right now is prohibitive. There's a lot of projects that are shovel ready that no one's pulling the trigger on. Again, commercial, residential, disability all over the country, because cost of construction's raised out of control, and cost of labor in Australia. You know, we've been chatting with people internationally who are really resistant to invest in Australia because of our industrial relations laws over here and the cost of labor, and just the cost of materials over here.
Yep.
And you've got this a bit more of a global perspective than many others might. I mean, what are your thoughts about how do we get that in control? Like there's modern methods of construction that we can leverage. There's materials and different design and ways to do it. But what are your philosophies on that about how to keep it high quality but still the cost control?
Look, it's a balancing act. I mean, having the, I suppose, background and, with the auditing side, and we audit PNP Group has, we do certification audits. So we deal, somewhere around about 100, 150 plus construction companies like nationally in terms of auditing on a yearly basis from a certification point of view. So we see a lot of stuff. We see a lot of information. We engage in terms of peak industry in that particular area, always engaging with Q&S. So the issue you've got right now, we've got, a supply versus demand. Demand for building at the moment for expediting developments is through the roof in an unprecedented way. The supply of the competency, let's not just talk about workers. We're talking about competency here to be able to build, even to the BCA and NCCs, is a real problem. I mean, you just need to go on the podcast and online and see all the defects, remedials. You've got buildings, in Victoria that are costing $23 million to fix when, councils and regulators have been involved as quantity surveyors.
There's a dude in Melbourne who's gotten some social media prominence. He's a building inspector, and he goes around and does all those.
Zeke. He's good. I know him. Yeah, I've linked in him a couple times. Yeah, top bloke. Yeah, people should jump on and have a look at him. He's quite funny. But that's it's funny in the context of watching him. But that's actually the reality. I mean, we go in that space with litigation as well in defects and remedial. I mean, I've got a client at the moment, staying nameless, builder. Young girl, disabilities, builders built a deck, completely destroyed it. Yeah, over $200,000 spent. He's done a runner, so we're privately funding that for her to drag him in before the courts, out of our own financial backing, because it's very hard. The regulators don't enforce compliance. I mean, unless they want to go and get a conviction, it's problematic, and everyone knows that. People think you've got cover and insurance like homeowner's warranty, but you actually don't. So come back to it, supply and demand is blowing it out. And the problem is, again, with that demand for more, you unfortunately get more greed. So the costs, there's unrealistic costs out there for people. They're putting an unrealistic number to themselves in terms of a price point. We come into this space in terms of accessibility and disability building and design. It's a very specialised area. It is not for the average person, and the average person and builder cannot do it. There's some good ones out there, don't get me wrong, but anyone you will speak to, it is a labour of love. There is a lot of time spent on it. There's a lot of double checking, crossing checking. Even though you can do a design, you can go over engineering, you can do it. You can do 1,000 things, but the example is, you can pour a slab and get it as precision as you need to within millimeters. But there's always going to be little things you need to touch up. And if you haven't got people on the ground and on around these buildings that really truly understand it, you're in a lot of trouble. And we talk about how many, and you've been on the pods with a few of the guys, and obviously Four Corners, we know the story in terms of the properties and the vacancies with SDAs nationally.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd throw out there, forget the properties that they're vacant to all these mum and dad investors. I would go as far to say probably 30% to 40% probably of those properties wouldn't even comply with BCA and probably have defects in them for non-conformance with just standard building code. Forget the fact of where they're built, how the locations they're built, and the fact that they may not, in certain cases, comply with even the current SDA design standards.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if we got our mate out and did an actual audit on some of those properties from a building code point of view, the OCs will be ripped out of them.
Yeah, mate, we see that a bit. Look, obviously, as a reasonable size estimate provider, we deal with a lot of new build property that comes through the pipeline, and our property management team was spending quite a bit of time chasing builders' warranties for defects. As soon as someone moved in, you work out this thing hasn't been done correctly, just so, or this bit of kit, whether it's a door or a toilet or a sink, was maybe a bit lower in the spec, and the wear and tear is a bit higher, and it breaks in the first 90 days.
Yeah.
So we've spent a lot of time chasing.
Yeah, and that's why with our model, we, regardless if we've got, the very close relationships with, our third party investors to the group, where they entrust the full build and design with us. But our agreements are the fact that we, as designers and builders and agents, we stay onto the property, with people like yourselves and stay there. Because we're a big believer in anything we do, especially with, modifications around Australia, and that if we touch it, we should own it, and we should hang around and make sure everything's right. So we don't sort of pack up the tools and run away, because we do know on the other side, because we chase, you won't get the builder back. Once they go, they're gone.
Yeah. And that's the trouble with as soon as you settle, that's the trouble with builders' warranties. I mean, you like to whittle out the ones that are unreliable, and you stop working with them. But even and look, I'm not trying to throw shade on builders. I know they're busy. I know the margins are thin, and I know it's a tough game. But it can be really hard to get them to come back to do some warranty work.
Look, it is, and that's again why we're sitting in the space we are in terms of luxury accessibility, is because we don't want. From a building point of view and builder, ourselves and things like that. And we want craftsmen. We want craftsmanship. We want precision. We want people to, when it's done, to be proud of being incorporated with a project that, like we try to do with all our projects, win awards. And we've won a substantial amount of them. We've gone up against standard bathrooms and products, and won and been successful in peak industry. So open categories, we've put bathrooms up and won, various design standards and different things. So we want always our philosophy with our projects is, the one we touch, we want to be the best. We want to win awards, but also we want everyone to come back and be, why they got into the building themselves to be a craftsman. But that also means we use top level product material. We don't compromise. We don't. Our skirtings are not MDF. They're high end pine treated products. We use impact resistant boards, 13 mils, things like that. Everything there that we look at, and you see that with the project up there at Caboolture and others coming. The materials, there's no compromise on any of the fixtures, fittings.
Now that's a good segue, Marcus, because I know that you're off to one of your kids he's got something at school in about a quarter of an hour. So I know Now you're on the clock, right? You're back from Melbourne. You've been fixing the building up all week, and you got to get some family time in. And you sent me a photograph of a project you've got coming up. And again, I'm just looking at the render now, and it's the kind of thing that I'd expect to see in an agency window at Double Bay, right? It's a beautiful looking property. So what's this one all about?
So that's the Hestia that we're launching up towards the Sunshine Coast. So again, that will be it'll be, again, depending on engagement, we've designed that in a different way. We can design 4 luxury high physical support 1-bedroom units on a level with a 1-bedroom OOA with 2 bedrooms, or we can do 4 2-bedrooms. So we've got a few multiple layouts in terms of the design, but that's again, if you look at it, it's about the fact that visually from the street, it doesn't look like there's people, a person with any type of
Yeah,
disability.
I'll drop the photo onto the video so everyone.
It's fully accessible in terms of internal. Again, all the latest technology, cloud technology in there. Again, it'll be like walking into a luxury boutique hotel in the foyer with chandeliers and all those things and artwork. So again, we're coming back to that mental health of individuals within workers, family members that really want to go, can go and look at that like a resort feel and go there and enjoy, even with the accessible barbecue. As you know, we've got at the Caboolture site, we've got a $10,000 fully accessible barbecue with commercial outdoor seating, so people can get down the back and have a community barbecue. And you don't even see those in councils. So, just the chairs and the barbecue alone is close to about 25 grand. So, but we feel, those are the points of difference within the property. And we feel, again, taking into this universal approach, that property doesn't need any alterations, modifications, any design changes. It will perform from the day. It will also allow someone to come in, through their supports to consider where the person is today in terms of their care and their needs, but understand that when they move there, they should be moving for life, that they know that property is going to, in terms of transition and changing, that property is going to support them, and they've got organisations behind them that are going to support them, moving forward. We don't want to move into any home, if you can, and have to keep moving out. You want to stay there for as long as you want to.
That's I think a lot of people are chasing that, and I suppose for the participant, mate, like again, just in the SDA world, and for everything you're saying about, these aren't necessarily SDA homes. They're enrolled as SDA, but they're not just
certified. They're certified as an SDA home,
right?
But
that's right.
They're luxury houses and units that we could, example, you could, if a person's involved in an incident, an accident at work, they could be placed in there, and it'd be like living in a luxury unit, while they're going through rehabilitation. We could rent them out to an individual that, like I said, wants to move into a place they can get care and rent their current home out, because it has all the technology, has all, the benching, has everything they need. So it's when we talk about universal approach, it's also universal in terms of anyone that can occupy the place without visually discriminating against people, because anyone, myself or you, would go and live in this unit, and everyone says the same thing. They would live there. So that's what we're obviously trying to bring to the market, and what we hope, by doing that, in terms of providing these types of properties, we open up for holiday lets to all sorts of things in the marketplace. And in a way, it raises the standard, within the sector, because then there's someone probably to chase, and we're maybe not the only one, but we're going to raise it up to a point and up to a level.
What stands out for me, right? If you now the property at Caboolture, it's a 4 apartment. Each apartment has a 2-bedroom unit, and it's all enrolled as high physical support, right? And everything you've just said along at the same time, right? Great outdoor barbecue areas. Now in Caboolture, there's a lot of SDA property, and there's a few vacant ones out further out, right? And for the participant sitting there, maybe they've had to take a property that's a bit further out. Maybe it's one of these ones that's a couple of years old. The design's like that's a bit sterile. There's no difference to what the participant pays for that boring, sterile place that's a bit further out versus this luxury place that's well located. All the assistive technology you mentioned, for them, there's not a single penny that changes out of their pocket, but they get access to a facility that's by any measure far more
correct. And that's
pleasant.
exactly right. I mean, and look, and I'm not doing brands here, but I sort of say to someone, I mean, if you've got a budget for for a Holden or Ford, and you walked into a dealership and they give you the Rolls Royce or Ferrari for the same budget,
same
which
dollars.
one really are you going to take? I mean, so, and you're right, it is sort of a
You're showing your age,
analogy.
mate. We don't even make Fords and Holdens in Australia anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah. Well, I am a Ford man, so yeah, a bit disappointing, but anyway. But look, that's sort of what we sort of say to people. You're right. There's no alterations with the budgeting and that, but we do that. Again, because we're not just focused on the short game, focused on the long game. We understand what we need to do in terms of building and design and products and different things. But the key thing is we're not just trying to look at such a minority of marketplace here in this SDA and building a minimum product that's clinical looking. We're building a product that caters to 60% of the market, which is people with disabilities. That's really what we are in Australia. So 60%, that may have some form of disability. We want to cater for that, but we want to also ensure that everybody, is not visually discriminated. It's a property that everyone would live in. Everyone feels comfortable to go to. Everyone wants to go and work there. And I'm sure that, if two products were side by side, workers would be going next door to work in this, and we want that because we want people to go to work and enjoy. We want people to go.
Important piece, like you bang on about the staffing, and we see it so often. In SIL homes, SILs have such a devil of a time trying to keep staff because if they're not in a spec'd out home, the staff have a really hard time trying to work in a standard resi home that's 10 years old, and you've got 2 or 3 participants, and you need staff. It's really hard to make that a safe workplace. And then the SDA homes are designed to help the staff do the heavy lifting. And then again, but it's a bit sterile. So there is, again, I've seen the staff areas at the Caboolture property. It's fantastic. So mate, look, thank you. I know that you've got to run, and we'll really good to chat. Now the property in Caboolture, that it's just come online. We're expecting enrollment literally any minute. Hopefully today that should come through from the housing team and the agency. Again, if you are listening to this, if you're an OT, a support coordinator, participant, a stakeholder, a family member, there's vacancies in this home right now. Just call Disability Housing Solutions, email, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, however you want to get to us, and we'll have a discussion with you about your person and what they need. And then looking ahead, mate, this thing with Tessie, again, I'll put the photo up. Looks, again, it's just rewriting the rule book on what accessibility can look like. And it's really cool.
We've got Hestia, we've got the Graces down the Goldie. That will be down around Southport, Labrador as well, down that way. But it's about collaboration with key industry people, like-minded people that want to, change the focus point. We want to do that, and we want to raise the benchmarks up. So what we do find and within the sector is we get the individuals and people in there for a quick money grab. We get them out, and possibly, people can invest in the right organisations and come with the right people with the right philosophies, the right, end game, the people that, and are trying to make change and set a benchmark. And look, we've got the 32 Olympics coming. I know America's screaming at the moment from accessibility that there's none around for the Paralympic teams and that. We should be all raising our standard up there for Brizzy and the Goldie and that in Australia and generally to set the benchmarks at a level that the world and Europe look at and say, well, Australia gets it right. Australia, gets it in general. And we're building some top quality properties out here in the universal accessible way. And there's good collaboration. And as I said, the more that go down this pathway and just raise the benchmark up, all developers, builders or, investments and things like that, the better it will just be for the community and better for providers. But that means, as you know, mate, the providers are going to come and engage. They can't keep people hidden. They've got to come and talk and talk to people like yourself and others out there and say, look, this is what we would like, this is what we need, because there are, said companies out there that can design wonderful things and can design something for people to go on for life. It shouldn't be the way the model is at the moment.
Get it. All right, mate. Good stuff. Marcus,
right.
Thank you for your time. Awesome, mate. Have a good day. Have a good morning at the school. Hope it all goes well. I know you're doing a whale week, so it'll be good to catch up with the kids and your wife.
All right, done. All right.
Take care, mate. Cheers. Right.